Now, Chris, tell us what prompted you to research this topic of online reading correlating to shorter attention spans.
Well, I got interested in this topic because as a teacher, we always hear students today are not paying attention. They're not capable of following any type of argument at all. So I was a little curious about whether that would actually be true or not, because every generation always gets its share of problems and grief from the older generation.
Mm-hmm. In your article, you have cited several studies that have shown drops in reading levels in recent years, and there is a concern that we are not reading as many in-depth pieces. Does that worry you at all, that we are potentially losing some of that knowledge?
Not particularly. As I did some research here, here's what I discovered, that we are reading differently now. We're not maybe focusing on a single subject at great depth, but what we're focusing on are a lot of things on a more shallow level, but tying them together and making bigger conclusions. So actually we're getting deeper, but in a slightly different way. So different connections are being made, and this is something that knowledge has always done. So it's not really that big of a deal.
So to go along with that, are we going to see in-depth reading and knowledge just redefined just in the context we are in now?
Yeah, I think we will ultimately. You still have a lot of people who are out there who were sort of brought up in what I just call the old paradigm, which is the literacy paradigm. But now this newer generation is brought up in this hybrid paradigm, and that will cause knowledge to change when that generation rises up to the level of making decisions and taking leadership in society.
And because we're in a transitioning time currently, where does the role of traditional literacy fit?
Well, the role will always be there. We still have cultures out there that are mostly oral, even though literacy has been dominant now for millennia. And I think that that will always exist. It will always be a thing. But in general, what we're going to do is see knowledge begin to change. And it'll be more focused on problem solving than knowledge acquisition. So the idea is more pragmatic. It's not learning to think rightly, it's learning to solve problems.
I found it interesting that our attention spans have decreased as communication has advanced. And just seeing how our society is going, it seems that communication is going to continue to advance. So do you think that same inverse relationship will continue between the attention spans and communication?
I actually think that will not continue. And I think the reason that it won't continue is because, let's face it, you can't get much shorter than about 7 or 8 seconds. So we have to be able to pay attention to certain things. And as a result of that, I think that what we're going to see is slightly longer engagement with maybe something that I write, that I put out on social media, that people begin to respond to, and I'm going to engage in that a little bit longer. So I think we're going to see that at some point either stop or reverse, and we'll see a slight uptick in the attention span.
So you don't think we'll reach a level where there's no attention span
No,
at all?
I don't think so. I think that would be almost impossible, right? I mean, once you think about it,
right.
Even in this short interview, we actually have focused on something for several minutes.
Yeah.
And I think we'll always have, we have to have some level of attention span. And honestly, I just don't see how we can go much lower.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris, for taking the time to further explain some of your concepts in your article for the Athens Institute for Education and Research. This topic of transitioning into a new type of literacy is fascinating and is exciting to see as our technology only becomes more complex. For Liberty News, I'm Katie Copeland.